Hi, I'm Illeana Douglas. Welcome to Trailers from Hell. I'm going to be talking about The Swimmer. The Swimmer from 1968 is a film with many meanings. It's a wonderful film to absorb. It's a true masterpiece, I think. And if I had my way, I would have a room in my house all white and I would have this film playing on a constant loop. I would just walk in and get a few moments of Burt Lancaster in The Swimmer. How can a movie be so enjoyable and yet so disturbing at the same time? The images and Burt Lancaster's performance will never leave you, even if you want them to. His performance is so raw and brave that you begin to see it almost as a deconstruction of his very own movie star persona. I mean, you think through the movie, wait a minute, is this the guy from Trapeze? This is the guy from The Killers? It's just an out there performance, which at one point includes him literally stripping down just to hang out with some nudists. It's really shocking to see a movie star like him. The screenplay and the direction are by Eleanor and Frank Perry, and it's based on a John Cheever short story. Now, they also made David and Lisa, Diary of a Mad Housewife, which is one of my favorite films, Play It As It Lays, another amazing film. And all of these films deal with kind of the stripping away of the self. I mean, what we present to the world versus the ugliness and kind of ultimate acceptance of who we really are. And it's a shame that all anyone ever really remembers Frank Perry for is being the director of Mommy Dearest, because all of his early work with his wife Eleanor is really fantastic. So check it out. I read that Lancaster, who was very athletic and used to prepare really for all of his roles, but he was not a swimmer. So he trained for months to get into shape to actually play this swimmer. And as the day progresses, his swim, the weather, all the people that he meets, the conversations that he has along the way, they just start to become darker and darker. And you find out through conversations that Ned is actually kind of a fraud. He owes people money. He's cheated on his wife. He drinks too much. He's actually an outcast in this society in Connecticut. Lancaster said in an interview that The Swimmer was actually one of his favorite roles. Unfortunately, he said the whole film was a disaster. Columbia was down on it. The movie was a flop. I really want you to give it a second look. I think you'll agree. It's actually one of Lancaster's best. Here it is, The Swimmer. Now, films about the dark underbelly of suburbia set in Connecticut seem to be a subgenre of its own. You've got The Ice Storm, Parish, Stepford Wives, Loving. Even Mr. Blandings builds his dream house. I mean, take it from me. I grew up in Connecticut. It's a pretty sick place. So, with this idyllic setting of Connecticut, this man, played by Burt Lancaster, decides that he's going to spend a beautiful summer day simply swimming to his home. Now, it's going to be a grand and youthful adventure. And to do this, he's going to have to swim through every neighbor's pool on the way back to his own house. That's basically the narrative. But the movie begins with Lancaster simply walking out of the woods, standing like a god in his bathing trunks. It's like, where did he come from? Why? It's Burt Lancaster with those big, great teeth, you know? And it just immediately puts you in this mindset that this is going to be a very strange journey. Now, Burt Lancaster was very unhappy with Frank Perry. They disagreed on his interpretation of the main character, Ned. And so Lancaster replaced him, and Sydney Pollack reshot key scenes. And then he also replaced the lead actress, Barbara Loden, who plays his mistress, with Janice Rule. So Janice Rule was really an inspired choice. She goes toe to toe with Lancaster. She's very sexy as his bitter ex-lover. And their scene is directed by Sydney Pollack. For me, it's kind of the highlight of the film. It's almost a short story of its own, and the fact that it was shot later by a separate director with a completely different style of acting kind of adds to the dreamlike feeling, I think, of the film. Now, since this is one of the most important scenes in the film, it's interesting to wonder why he was so unhappy with Loden, but this disappointment of her being fired actually led to her making her own film, which she did. She wrote and directed and starred starred in a really groundbreaking movie called Wanda from 1970. But what I think is so important about Lancaster and his performance is that he plays this incredibly flawed individual, as we come to find out. Just as he wants to believe in his own mythology, we want to believe in it. Because if he is a fraud, maybe we're all frauds. Maybe the whole mythology about the American dream, about being rich and getting a big house and living in the suburbs, is a big fraud.